Once again, thanks for joining us today for the Public Square from the American Policy Roundtable. I'm Wayne Shepherd, and the team today is Dave Zanotti, Alan C. Duncan, our producer, Melanie Elsey, and Jeff Sanders, and a follow-up conversation to a recent program, Dave.
Who do we think we are? How many times do we ask ourselves that question quietly in prayer, saying, God, please don't let us think more highly of ourselves than we ought? And no matter how many times we pray it, people are going to point fingers and ask that question. Just be advised, we ask it in the mirror.
Right.
What we're talking about today, and we have been talking about for several programs now, which are a series that are covering the question of deism and the recanting of the Associated Press on the notion that deism was the doctrine of the predominance of the founding era, their surrender of that piece of intellectual real estate, which they've held for decades, generations. The bait and switch that's involved, which involved us getting into a conversation with Dr. William B. Allen, tracking what in fact this article is and what it means, and then the introduction of A Great Awakening, the film, and the lives of both Benjamin Franklin and George Whitefield, and all of the reformers of the Awakening, Jonathan Edwards and the Wesleys and others, and all tracking back to the ideas that birthed the principles upon which the Declaration of Independence and its 250th year of celebration exist, and a precursor. We're going to be having this same conversation 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Because we will be experiencing the 250th anniversary of the Constitution. And if you think that the progressive left, or whatever term you want to put on the radicalized godless equation, is exorcised about the Declaration.
Just you wait, huh?
Yeah, we're going to be at this for a while. So the question of who do we think we are? Well, here's who we think we are. By the way, hi, I'm Dave Zanotti. This is Wayne Shepherd, Melanie Elsey, Jeff Sanders, Alan Duncan. Yep. We've been at this for a while. What we are not is people who've never gotten a paper cut, particularly in the arena of public policy. Wayne, just this morning, Melanie was talking to our staff about a project she's been working on for decades in regards to state law and education policy. We'll save not getting into all the details because that's going to be a program in and of itself. Someone who spent decades of their life trying to move a method in public education requirements of public and private schools at the state law level, so to give children a chance to excel better, learn more. Melanie not only has paper cuts, she's got bandages and gauze in her trunk. She lives in this fight. We, as an organization, we not only have dirt under our fingernails, we're dirty most of the time, and we smell because we don't sit in the elite offices funded by billionaires and by corporations who are attempting to influence public policy for somebody else's agenda, comfort, or gain. We're in this business for what the Apostle Paul would call the common good. Love of neighbor, obedience to the Great Commission. That doesn't make us holy men. We are as sinful as anybody else in culture. We are sinners, all one and the same. But what it means is we're trying to follow the person of Jesus Christ and what he teaches throughout the entirety of the Judeo-Christian scriptures, and apply those things to the way that we live in public life. And we have allies. We happen to think those allies were the people who framed the Constitution, framed the Declaration, that we share much in thought in common, and that their practice is an example we can learn from. So that's who we think we are. We're just witnesses. We wish we didn't have to do this at the level that we had to do it, because there was such a common understanding that it was like people would say, duh, heard all that before. But what happens with 30 minutes of conversation with Dr. William B. Allen is thousands of people stop dead in their tracks and say, why didn't somebody tell me this before?
It makes a lot of sense, yeah.
And so this is what we come. So this is why we're in this conversation. So let's keep rolling on the question of Benjamin Franklin, of George Whitefield, of the Great Awakening, and the mindset of the framers and the founders. And let's be mindful, as Dr. Allen reminded us, that this period of the Great Awakening that's particularly covered in the movie is a period between 1740 and 1770. Now, that's significant. George Whitefield was not a signer of the Declaration of Independence. He was gone 6 years before that opportunity happened, but Benjamin Franklin was there. And Benjamin Franklin was there for a lot more than that. So let's go back to the movie. And let me throw something on the table that is off topic. And you guys can bring all the other stuff that you were saving in your other notes back. I'm going to throw this off topic to get us warmed up. Benjamin Franklin was media.
Yeah.
He was Fox News. Yep. He was Ted Turner. He was the guy.
He was a molder and shaper of public opinion, wasn't he?
With ink on his hands.
Yes.
What was the thing he was saying in the movie, that you can stroke or you can
soothe?
You
can soothe,
and they both
or you
sell.
can stroke.
Yeah. And they both sell.
Yeah.
And they both sell. And when Franklin met Whitefield, he saw dollar signs.
And he made a lot of dollar signs off of Whitefield.
He wanted to be his publisher.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly enough, Whitefield thought that was a very good idea. It was a shot that went straight to the top. It's a hilarious interchange. Well, it's hilarious. It's funny interchange in the film where Whitefield tries to attribute their agreement to Providence. And Franklin says, or perhaps just a handshake of a deal in a print shop.
Yeah.
And that dynamic between the two of them carried through their whole lives and is depicted in the entire film. The deist skeptic, the super scientist, the benevolent, I don't know, he was something between Red Skelton and Bill Gates and Bill Nye the Science Guy, and he was a celebrity. He was a character of humor. He was a publisher. He was a
celebrity on two continents. He was a hit when he made it over into England and into France. Everybody just wanted to be around him.
With a little Will Rogers thrown in, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And now you say, well, of course, he was a self-serving publicist. Yeah, but, everybody finally figured out that poor Richard was Ben Franklin. But it wasn't like he said, here, hi, I'm Ben Franklin. Do this. I mean, he had some decorum about his personality. And he did have a significant amount of humor. Now, some people would say, well, hang on a second. There's all of this and all of this. Yeah, yep. We get it. Nobody's endorsing Ben Franklin's personal morality, and I don't suggest that you live off of any of ours. That's not what we're talking about here. But the arc of this film talks about the relationship between Franklin and Whitefield, and that is historically accurate, even more than the movie was able to depict.
And I was just going to add it. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I suspect, as with any movie, and I hear from reports that this is a good one, it never tells all the story, the whole story, the many details of the story. But it does a good job at kind of summarizing everything, right?
Well, it gets some of the biggest points historically very well said and quite accurate, and now it admits to fictionalizing some other stuff.
Yeah, of course, we understand. So it's at the end of the day, it's a film. Jeff,
my wife and I saw it, and of course we knew a lot about the background before we saw the film. And I grew up in Savannah, so I know about Bethesda, which is still there, by the way, and it's still active. But a couple of things impressed me about the storyline is that as a Christian, you can be friends with people who do not share your beliefs. Whitefield and Franklin were friends. They knew exactly where each other stood. And yet Whitefield did not see Franklin, and Franklin did not see Whitefield. They didn't see each other as mutual enemies. They still were friendly and worked well together to the degree that they could work. I mean, Whitefield didn't invite Franklin to stand in the pulpit and give an invitation, okay? But they were business partners, and we can be friends with people who do not share all of our beliefs.
Yeah, and it's interesting that Franklin was willing to publish explicitly Christian material in his publications. I know it was a different time, so to speak, but I think people could learn from that today in media. You don't have to be scared to hear a Christian belief. If you don't like it, well, then you can say what you think.
we have publishers who were historically Christian publishers being bought out by media moguls at this point.
We also have a situation where there's Rupert Murdoch and the Murdoch family that would hardly qualify for the banner of evangelical Christians, and yet their particular media brand permits that conversation to happen. Now, like Franklin, Mr. Murdoch has figured out that there's a lot of money in that stuff because there are a lot of people who do care about that messaging, even in America to this very hour. But there is an irony. There are other people who could see the profit motive as well, and they haven't surrendered the field because Mr. Murdoch's got everybody that's going to be listening, and there's no use to chasing that because at best, Fox, in their best hour in the evening, the best hours in the evening might reach 3 to 5 million people in a country of 336 million. So it's not like there's not a whole lot of other people who think in that direction. They just don't watch television. But today the silos are so desperately isolated that you do find situations that it doesn't matter how big the story may be. If it leads toward the theistic view, the God-filled equation, and the media sources are committed to the godless equation, that story that never appears. Franklin was not in that mode. And, of course, he was obviously profit-motivated.
Let's take our break here in the Public Square. We'll come back. This is a fascinating discussion, I find, and I trust you do as well. Any of our programs that we do that you may miss from day to day are all online at thepublicsquare.com. Thanks for watching, I should say listening to the Public Square here today. Although people can watch us from time to time, right, Alan?
Yeah. It's something that we're trying to do more of as time goes on, I think. We do have a YouTube presence. Look for The Lamppost, type in the Public Square on YouTube, and you can go see all kinds of little shorts and video clips. You'll see Dr. Jeff Sanders there from time to time. So something we're trying to build on.
Yep. In his bearded glory. Yeah.
I think it's important, Wayne, to understand that we're doing that not for clicks. We don't have any fiscal relationship with YouTube.
No.
We don't do any data mining. We're not a part of that game. We're not attempting to monetize a ministry off of YouTube. What we're trying to do is to reach people. And so we've put ourselves in a position of being functionally immune to all of that, because the goal of what we're doing here is to reach human hearts, not clicks. And so there's a difference, and I hope it comes through. And there's a second thing I should tell people about our presence in video, particularly. You'll see a lot of amateur hour. We don't work to perfect a video to wow the entertainment community. We attempt to do as much as is necessary to create a credible, discernible package that people can learn. Because we're really not trying to win a popularity contest. We're trying to reach hearts and minds.
Yeah, good point. Okay, back to A Great Awakening, this movie that some of us have seen, but not all.
So I think Ben Franklin would enjoy what we just talked about. Because if you look at Franklin's life and his role, he was clearly one of the thought leaders of the American founding dramatically. And because he played such a big role for years and actually for generations, it was easy for modernist, secularist historians to try to repaint the founding through the secular grid of Franklin, which, of course, in the arc of Franklin's life doesn't hold up because of that 1787 speech of June 28th before the Constitutional Convention, which is depicted at the close of this film, A Great Awakening, accurately. Very significant, a huge weakness in the argument. But assuming that most people wouldn't go back in any form of media communications and check Franklin's end arc of his life, they would just listen to the middle arc A lot of academics have been telling a fairy tale, which a Great Awakening penetrates and sort of dissipates, to the point which the Associated Press article that started our conversation several episodes ago in regards to academics and the Associated Press carrying the story, giving up that America was a deist colony, so to speak, that cooked up the Declaration. They've surrendered that ground.
How long do you think it's going to, well, that's great, first of all, but how long do you think that's going to be until that information begins to get back into textbooks correctly for children?
That has a lot to do with little amateur hour operations like ours.
And movies like The Great Awakening.
And movies like A Great Awakening, because if you study the Associated Press, which is the media vehicle that has produced this story of surrender on deism and has become, in essence, a bait and switch article trying to say, well, they weren't deists, they were theistic rationalists, which you've got to hear Dr. Allen's response to that. It's just hilarious. Yeah. It's really, really funny.
Yeah, he pretty much destroys that, doesn't he?
All right. But the Associated Press is in an interesting position. The Associated Press began in the 1800s as a media organization connected to the telegraph. Their vision was to enable outlying towns to get news stories via the telegraph. And the Associated Press was a nonprofit established to try to take stories news as was heard around the country and get it out there. Then they became interested in particularly getting pictures out there, and they pioneered some of the technology that enabled us to put pictures into the wire service. And Wayne and I can tell you from early days of radio, when you were in a newsroom, you grabbed the AP wire as pretty much your baseline objective journalistic source for what actually happened. Just the facts, please.
Yeah. I have photos of me ripping copy off the UPI wire machine to read the news on the radio.
Very similar. And so that service from a non-perspective basis has collapsed because there was a point in time in which the Associated Press and UPI were both serving thousands and thousands of newspapers, none of which exist any longer. Now they are literally gone and out of business, or they've consolidated from 100 to 1. And in most cases, they're now online sources with electronic connections. So what do they need AP for? Mm-hmm. Well, they need AP so that they don't have to hire people, so that the AP writers can do the writing, send it out across the internet, and then the paper. So there's still a relation and a connection. That's a good word. We should have meant that. A connection to these papers, but it's not the funding source. So AP is basically broke. So several years ago, they came up with a new strategy. They have gone to predominantly left-leaning, into some cases strong left-wing foundations, large foundations, like the Lilly Foundation, the Lilly Endowment, Inc., which is an $80 billion corpus, an $80 billion set of assets from which they earn billions of dollars a year and give billions of dollars away. That's just one. Then there are about a half a dozen others that AP has been pursuing aggressively, to the point where they are now seeking to raise $100 million a year to underwrite their organization, all through charitable foundation giving. But it's all of one philosophy.
Well, it's interesting because in their description of themselves, they talk about how they are an independent global news organization dedicated to factual reporting, which I find fascinating just in itself.
Doesn't sound very independent, does it?
5 joke lines come in, which I shouldn't say any of them on the air.
Right.
Yeah. I can tell you from us being in the nonprofit world since 1980 that organizations that are highly funded by a single formula of connected foundations tend to not be independent, because he who pays the piper calls the tune. Follow the money. And we have seen a radical shift in the Associated Press in our experience with them over the last 45 years. They used to be really good. Their agencies, their bureau agencies in the different capitals around the country used to have some high quality reporters who really did care about getting the story right and getting it out there. There was a time in which they were dependable. That time is long past. And obviously there's been a lot of circumstances that have forced them to change, but their alternative, which they are proudly announcing, but not announcing exceptionally loudly, is that their funding model is now, they've set up a second nonprofit to basically get in the foundation money and get it back to AP. So they've been the banner of the surrender of deism. You don't find that surrender of deism coming from Yale, Harvard, Princeton. No, it's the AP. Interesting. Very interesting. So let's go back to Franklin. Why is this a significant conversation? Because Franklin was as big as the AP in colonial America. Mm-hmm. He was media. And what did Franklin come to understand? Watching the founding, and participating in the Declaration of the Constitution, the role of media defines reality for we the people. Franklin understood that. You watch the movie A Great Awakening and you'll understand why the First Amendment exists in regards to protection of the freedom of the press. Because media someone has always had to carry the news, and the news changes the way people view things.
Well, Dave, I'm looking, if I've got my sourcing correct, talking about textbooks again, how long this information would take to get back into textbooks. They look like they've gone big as well. I'm looking at McGraw-Hill is now owned by Platinum Equity, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt by Veritas Capital. So a lot of these textbook companies are just owned by big private equity firms. I mean, some of them are publicly traded even.
And how do we even know that they are American owned? They could have stakes from China or France or Brazil or wherever.
Yeah, we should do some more digging on that, because those countries obviously would have no reason to encourage us to understand our founding correctly, and maybe they'd be even incentivized for us to not understand our founding correctly.
I would even look at it from a different perspective, because you have some states where the state agencies are voting on which textbooks to use for the entire state. Most states do not do that. In some states, you have local districts who are choosing materials to use. You have some states that will say, we want the original documents taught, not just taught about, but use the original documents as the curricular materials. And so that should not be a problem for any public school system to go back and use the founding documents, the Federalist Papers, the Declaration of Independence, even the Magna Carta, some of those founding documents, to get a sense of what was happening in terms of the public policy push early on in the colonies and then into the states. But you have to have legislators who are willing to take a stand in pushing for that, because what's taught becomes what's tested. So my perspective would come in the teacher preparation programs at the colleges and universities, because in those programs, teachers they come in as undergrads, and I'm speaking from experience. You want to believe that what you're being taught in your training in the pre-surface programs is good and healthy and right for kids. And so sometimes people coming into those university settings and those teacher preparation programs need to have more discernment, because they sometimes at the local level can choose independently what they're using for materials.
All right, let me draw the line for a break right there. We'll come back in a moment and pick up our conversation today. It's a continuing conversation. And by the way, might I add, all the programs on this theme are still in the archive, as always, at thepublicsquare.com. You can go back and listen from the beginning. We'll be back here on today's edition of The Public Square.
Spreading the light of liberty across the land. Now back to the Public Square.
All right, let's continue on with the Public Square here today. This whole series has been a good one, and I appreciate you listening and following along with us, because this is the kind of information why we exist, right, Dave?
It is, Wayne, and our country is at a pivotal time, and it's not the sort of thing that most people are focusing on. They're looking at elections. They're looking at a presidential situation as it's unfolding. They're looking at Iran. They're looking and those are all important issues.
Right.
But there's one that will never return, and that's the 250th celebration of the Declaration of Independence.
Mm-hmm.
And people say, like, so what? I mean, how many hot dogs can you eat anyways? It's 4th of July. It's okay, what? I mean, buy more fireworks. No, this is a very significant moment of opportunity. And it's not escaping the people who don't like the Declaration. So you guys have to make everything a battle between right and left. And I feel exactly the same way. When the Declaration of Independence was signed, it was a conclusion of consensus.
Right.
Everyone came together and said, this is who we are, this is what we believe, and this is what we're going to do. It was a totally unifying reality. Why would it be divisive? Well, it'd be divisive because some people have opted out of the core rationale as to why America exists. Some people have been so influenced by faulty scholarship that they've been taught and trained to hate America. And some people coming from evangelical Christian colleges and universities are in the mainstay of attempting to convince us that there is not a conclusive answer to the question of where was God, where was the Bible at the time of the founding, what are those principles, and are they still valid today?
Well, the 250th anniversary coming up soon gives us a possibility of enunciating why it shouldn't be divisive.
There are so many things that we should be doing between now and then. The first I would suggest is to read the Declaration.
Yeah, starts there, doesn't it?
It truly does. We've had conversations here for several days about what can we do, and there's so much that we can do. We talk about public schools and homeschools and universities and colleges and churches. Okay, hang on. How about, do you have a copy of the Declaration? It only takes a few minutes to read. And if you want to get warmed up, you can read the opening and the closing and leave the segment on the grievances out. Because, if you've read that a couple of times, you know what they were ticked off on in regards to their issues of the way that the Brits work. Now, there's great things to be learned there. I'm not suggesting those are irrelevant. They're instructional in many, many ways. But the point is that the document was more than just a policy letter on things they didn't like about Parliament and the King. This was a rationale, a philosophical statement as to why they should start their own country. And it wasn't just something to put out there and say, let's see if it flies. They were sending it back to the mother country. These folks had relatives over there. And they basically said, that daughter of yours that I married that's over here with me in America? Well, guess what? We're not going to be British subjects any longer. We're going to start our own country. Billy, go get that guy. Get on a boat and go get him and beat him to within an inch of his life. Bring my daughter back here. You're not about, this was real. It was personal. It was intimate. And it was expensive because that document was going to be decided upon based on the shedding of blood. And the people who put it together understood that. So may I suggest humbly that the first thing to do is to read it. Read it for yourself. It's actually in English. It's not from 1,000 years ago. It's not from 3,000 years ago in a foreign language that no one speaks any longer. No, it's in English. It's in your language.
And if you don't have a copy, we'll send you one.
Send it to you for free. We sure will, and happy to do so. Just visit us at aproundtable.org or thepublicsquare.com. We have two websites, and get your free copy. All right, so first thing is to read it. Then the next thing is read it at the dining room table.
Oh, yeah.
Right? If you're alone, read it as your what you would normally read. Don't read a cereal box. Get it in the morning. Read the Declaration. If you have a spouse, read it with your spouse. If you have children, read it with your children. If you have grandchildren, read it to your grandchildren. This is how we stop worrying about all the other agencies in society and culture and whether they're going to cover it, because we covered it. We the people covered it. That is where not only the moral authority, but the true power of our country still resides, in all of us. So the best thing you could do to celebrate the 250th is get a copy and read it, and then read it to the people you care about. That's first thing. Now, there's a few more, but let's go back for a minute to the movie. Would anybody suggest watching this movie is a good way to get into the idea of the Declaration?
Absolutely. And I would also recommend the movie to a younger audience. It's not just for adults. I mean, children 9, 10, 11, 12, anything younger than that, probably not.
Well, and the blessing of the movie is it's going to open up doors for other conversations, because the movie, for me, took a timeline between Benjamin Franklin's involvement and George Whitfield's involvement, and it really went back to their childhood for each of them, so that you could see the perspective that was sort of ingrained in them as children, and how God worked in each of them differently to come to a point of being able to acknowledge and recognize that God is providential, in charge, sovereign, and just the culmination of the movie was, of course, the speech that Franklin gave at the end.
Yes.
But the lives of those two men and how they paralleled and then intertwined was just phenomenal.
Did you notice how the way Franklin was raised, it was sort of a middle-class home and, not a lot of hardship there. But Whitfield was raised basically in poverty and great hardship. Franklin, however, never really embraced the Christian faith, and yet Whitfield was driven to Christ. And I wonder if it's how they were raised had a tremendous impact on that.
And I don't know, Jeff, because early in Whitfield's life, he wanted to be an actor. And he said, when it was suggested to him that he become a preacher, he was like, "Oh, no way on God's green earth would that ever happen to me."
Yeah.
And Franklin came to the same conclusion as a child, but the Lord walked them through their life experiences in very different ways, but brought them together. I was just so impressed with. I'm a visual learner, so for me, it kind of put pieces together that I had known, but in a timeline that was understandable.
The notion that both men were projected as potential ministers from their parents, Franklin to the point where his father used the term that he was, Ben Franklin was the tithe of the family.
Because he was the 10th child.
He was the 10th child, so he was given, in essence, over to the Lord and for ministry, which he rebelled against his whole life, which I can get it. I mean, there's kids that were raised in different traditions who were told, you will be going to seminary. You're our priest, or you're our nun, or you're our pastor, you're our preacher. Like you were told, you're the doctor, you're the lawyer. And they go, I ain't want anything to do with that stuff. It's very, very human, very understandable. And the character arcs in those developments, I think, are good about the film.
So it gave rise to him leaving Boston for Philadelphia, huh?
Yeah, certainly.
At what was 16, I think, years old, something like that?
Yes, and all their journeys are kind of put well. And these are, by the way, these are stories we could go on for hours about, and we would encourage people. We hope this encourages people to look. I've got a question, Wayne, when we come back about 2 words.
Okay,
two words.
2 words. Anybody want to guess what they are? Well, you'll have to stay with us to find out here in the Public Square. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your support of the American Policy Roundtable, and we will return in a moment.
Spreading the light of liberty across the land. Now back to the Public Square.
A word for the day. Actually, 2 words for the day from Dave Zanotti coming up now on the Public Square. You promised 2 of them, so we're going to hold you to it.
I did, and they're in the title of this film we're discussing, among other things. We're talking about so much about the 250th All right, but let's
well, there's
talk
only
about,
3 words in the title, so how difficult can it be?
Yes, here we go. And so why was it called a Great Awakening and not the Great Awakening?
Oh, okay.
Well, it might be because what the real subplot of the story was about the awakening of Benjamin Franklin. As opposed to simply the historical reality that there was an extraordinary revival that happened in America. It may also be because there was more than one Great Awakening in America. There are lots of reasons why they may have chosen a versus the, but they did.
We discussed this briefly before, but how far can we take this the change that came over Franklin?
It's studying Franklin's writings, and again, Franklin was now he's got a reputation, and no one is endorsing Franklin as potential saint material. He was profligate. He was liberal in his use of alcohol. I mean, pick something that you could be liberal over, and Franklin was probably there. And he reveled in it, and Europe thought he was quaint. I mean, he was. Look, he was media. He was a celebrity. He played the role. This was prior to Hollywood. He was his own Hollywood. I mean, he really was his own promoter.
Who else could get away with wearing a beaver skin hat and be a celebrity in France?
With the fox thing hanging around your, and I don't mean the news network. I'm talking about a literal fox hanging over your shoulders, a stole. All right. So, but he was also a brilliant scientist. He was a very
self-taught,
worthwhile. Yes, very worthwhile and prolific writer. Okay, so Franklin brought a lot to the table. But how legitimate is the penetration of biblical thought in his life? There is an arc, without a doubt. Its height is June 28, 1787. He never recanted or repented from that moment, but in fact, you will find Benjamin Franklin highly involved in operations in support like the American Bible Society, like the abolition movement. The end of his life was all in the direction of what you heard on June 28th. Now, was he perfect? No. Did he stop drinking? No, I don't know all that stuff.
Well, and there is also a 1790 letter to Ezra Stiles that people can look up and go read, where he is expressing some doubts as to the divinity of Christ. Those probably a few weeks before he passed away, so perhaps he came to a better conclusion with those doubts. But it was something that he certainly was wrestling with.
Well, and again, it depends on what a person's desire is, and oftentimes in getting into these letters. We've spent a lot of time here reading letters and diaries of framers and founders, but it doesn't mean we understood the context in which they were talking about them. And I have known people who, toward the end of their life, have had serious moments of rechecking themselves. Do I really believe what I believe? Mm-hmm. And have come to the affirmation of, yes, I did, but I had to ask the question one more time. And again, so the other thing is that we have to understand also, we didn't sit in church with Ben Franklin. We didn't sit and listen to all the conversations he and Whitfield had. We don't know. Sometimes when we use terms today theologically, and we lay our current meanings over them, we don't know if that's exactly what they meant either. So there are some things in history that we just can't crack their brains and their minds. But one thing is sure, he is a conflicted character, and he did choose to never permit himself to be enjoined to any religious society that would have given him a brand. He was an individualist to the end. And so you won't find him on the church log. You won't find him in the baptismal registry. So what you will see is something that he believed in, is that actions speak louder than words. And you will see his actions, his continuing actions, and oftentimes his speaking in the third person through other people. Now, again, I'm not advocating that George Whitfield converted Benjamin Franklin. I'm not even sure that Benjamin Franklin, in fact, converted. I do know that Benjamin Franklin, history proves, changed in words and in deeds. From a position of deism to a position of understanding that God governs in the affairs of men and that all of us will stand before him in judgment.
Certainly the right direction to head, right?
a real strong start. And of course, Dr. Allen, and I encourage everyone to go back to those conversations. Dr. Allen uses the word humility in this context. That's a beautiful and an artful recovery of a word that we have often just lost. And humility begins with fear of the Lord. And that's something that was largely missing in Franklin in his younger years, that was exceptionally noted in his latter years. Oh, one other thing what we should talk about, survey of the panel. Did anybody here get a check from Sight and Sound Films for this?
I'm still waiting for it.
No, should we expect that?
No, nobody. So did we write a letter asking permission to talk about their movie? No. What you're seeing here is typically on the public square, just like everybody else. Yep. We go look at movies and we study history and we comment. Now you say again, back to the beginning of all this conversations, well, who do you think you are? Well, yeah, we're just one beggar telling another one where to find a piece of bread. Difference is we've spent 45 years knocking on doors. So we kind of know what's behind a lot of them. And so that's why we try to bring these positions and these points of view. Let's go back to final questions about Dr. Allen's visit with us in this subject. I mean, he gave us so much to think about. Wow. Anything any of you want to bring out to encourage our listeners to go back to?
I really appreciated his distinction between deism and the flip sleight of hand to theistic rationalism. In his description, he states that in a secular society, there is no concern for neighbor because there is no humility. There's only the promotion of one's own interest.
When you're talking about a completely secular society, you're talking about a society in which there is no concern for your neighbor ultimately. Why? Because there is no humility. There's no reason to be humble. The only thing that matters is what human beings can make of themselves and what they can get for themselves. That is secular society. Where are you going to find in that orientation the ground of concern for others? Where are you going to find there any sense of obligation greater than that of one's own interests? You're not going to find it. Hence, it means to be certain that you will not be a community of people who, as the words of the Holy Scriptures teach us, love their neighbors as themselves.
We have been blessed in this country to have in our foundational structure through the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, where it be freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom to worship, the liberties that we have constructed for our society really comes down to the importance of our interactions, our relationships with others. And I really appreciated Dr. Allen's description of all that.
Wayne, when we come back, I've got to bring one more thing to the table. I think we need to bring all of this to a close and with the giant moment of so what. So the 4th of July is coming upon us.
Yep.
Okay, this has been interesting. I got to get on. So what? What else, in addition to reading the Declaration, can we do to live it?
That would be very helpful. All right, so stay tuned for that if you can. For the few of you who must leave us at this time because your station cuts away, of course, you can listen online at thepublicsquare.com. Also, we put this program on YouTube in audio form. You can listen to us there. Many people do. And we have a smartphone app, which makes it very easy to listen. It's free. You can go to your app store and download the Public Square smartphone app right now for listening anytime. All right, we'll get back to this conversation on the Public Square today, and I hope you'll stay with us. For the final time today, I'll say welcome back to the Public Square. This will be our last segment, but glad to have you along today. And anytime you want to get in touch with us, you can use our website for that purpose, thepublicsquare.com or aproundtable.org, where under events, by the way, you'll find something we're going to talk about now, and that's a celebration of the 250th anniversary of the Declaration, Dave.
Wayne, even as we talk, I am on my computer and I am sending you the drawings of Declaration Hall.
Oh, good.
The second or third set of drawings are now ready to be released. We got them this morning, and there is exhilaration all around. We are incredibly excited about what is about to happen at the American Mission Center, the headquarters of the American Policy Roundtable, and the base host studios of the Public Square Media Network. In that we, years ago, were given a 5-acre campus to develop, and we put the studios and all of that part of it first. And all along, we've said there needs to be a gathering center, an educational gathering center. Well, we now have got the drawings on what it's going to look like, and we are ready on the 4th of July to break ground. And it will be called Declaration Hall.
What's the purpose of this building?
The purpose of this building, for starters, is to give everyone an opportunity to do something in regards to preserving the testimony of the Declaration of Independence. We are participating in this largely as spectators, maybe as prayers and good wishers, but there's something we can do to keep this discussion and the principles of the Declaration alive and celebrated and experienced and instructed going forward for 100 years. And that's the purpose of Declaration Hall.
Well, as we record this program, this event is not that far away, is it? It's on the 4th of July.
4th of July will be the groundbreaking. And that was in question for a while, because when we started this idea out, people were kind of scratching their heads going, we're doing what? Then as everyone began to realize the tremendous impact and import of the Declaration of Independence, people said, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Well, what we should do is we should put together an Ebenezer, right? Put together a monument, put together a structure that says, we were here on this day, and this is what we affirmed that we believed, just like people 250 years ago. But that's, in and of itself, we don't want a dead monument. What we want is a living space that people can utilize as a tool for 100 years to come to teach the things we've been talking about these many days, many years now on the public square. We want to have a place to celebrate when someone produces a film like A Great Awakening, where we can literally come and display it in a theater and literally do college level and high school level seminars, that people can embrace this and understand the context and the purpose and the critique of it. There's a million projects that can happen. But I got to tell you, when you see the drawings, you are going to be enjoying. Now, there's a lot of ways. When you think of Declaration Hall, of course, you think of Philadelphia.
Yes.
All right, that's what everybody thinks of. Well, that's not what to think of here, because we did a step a little bit different.
Okay. What
we decided to do was to not build a replica of Independence Hall, because that's been done a lot of times before. Knott's Berry Farm's got them. People have got them around the country. That's cool, but that's not what we're doing. What we have done is to go back to the desks where the ideas were written down and the desks where those ideas were defended. And you can't get any more activity on the Declaration of Independence in its construction and its defense than the lives of John Adams and John Quincy Adams. And so we went to Adams National Park, took a look at the pictures of their two homes, which are 75 feet apart, both part of the family. John Quincy was born in house on the right, raised in house on the left. John Adams worked on the Declaration of Independence on the house on the left. So one was the old family home, one was the newer family home. We're building the entire front of Declaration Hall as a replica to the house that the Adams family lived in and thought in and wrote in. And once you walk inside the door, what you'll find is a replica of the first presidential library that was ever built, which happened to be built by the Adams family with their own money in a tribute to John and John Quincy, the second and sixth presidents. So when you walk through the doors, you won't walk into a saltbox house, you walk into a gallery that displays some amazing artifacts as books and other things, and of the art of the ideas behind the Declaration. And then when you go through the doors, you'll be in a theater-style gathering room that will be elegant and productive, that will enable us to produce an endless series of gatherings, conferences, video products, you just go on and on, where we keep the flame of this document alive until we get to the 300th and the 350th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence.
I'm looking at these plans now. You just sent them to me, and I mean, this building doesn't exist right now. The groundbreaking is July 4th, but this looks outstanding. It really does.
I can see. You should see your face. It's like, wow! It's like we just all opened this gigantic Christmas gift.
Yeah. Wow.
Right? So this is happening on the 4th of July. So Jeff, Melanie, Alan, but like you guys don't actually have to be there. We don't require attendance. But I'm guessing, Alan, your kids are going to come and help us turn the dirt again, right?
Oh, yeah. And they'll now understand what a ceremonial groundbreaking is, because I remember when Ethan first turned the dirt over all those years ago for this building, he said, we didn't really help. And he was so...
That's cute.
All the kids and grandkids will need more shovels. All right, we'll need more shovels. We'll help turn over the dirt. We've got 2 bus loads of, Wayne, some of your best friends coming in from Nashville and from other places as well. Ernie Haas and Signature Sound is going to join us as well on this event.
I know, yeah.
Oh, it's going to be way cool. It's going to be way cool. The music all day. We've got food. It's going to be several hours. We'll be together on the property. There won't be a moment that people won't enjoy. And we're doing it outside under a big tent. We're going old school, man.
Well, it sounds like fun, and it's really, this is going to last. This is going to stand here for a long time, isn't it?
Yes,
it's going to outlive us, isn't it?
We've already had several well-known conservative institutions and universities say we want to partner.
Good.
This is not a small thing at all. So it's very encouraging what we're going to be doing. And I want to encourage everybody, first off, to come, and then if not, come to listen to the coverage on the Public Square Network. Watch online. There'll be live video, or there will be video of the live event there. But I also want to encourage people, if we don't do something that we can mark and track, we're going to feel guilty on the way out. Okay? Because it's easy to talk, but what do you do? Mm-hmm. With that as a moment, let me encourage people to don't get caught thinking I could have done something more. Here's something you can do. You can pray for this project, and you can give financially to it. This is a complete 100% nonprofit operation. Nobody gets a portfolio bump from this building going up. This is all for the future of the hope of keeping liberty alive.
Well, here's the big question. Are tickets required for this event on the 4th?
Yeah, there are, because there's only so much space in the tent, though there's a big campus. You got a lot of places. We're going to, you'll have a lot of places to hang out.
And it gives us a better idea of how to provide for how many people are coming, too. So
yes, but the tickets are not expensive. It does require a ticket. We've got to know who's going to be on the property. It's those days are urgent. But please feel free to come. And if you can't come, I would honestly tell you, we've all made contributions to this project. We're all donors here. I'm telling you, you don't want to miss the opportunity to say, I had a role to play with that. And I was thinking about this, Wayne. If there were 100,000 people who participated and said they gave something, I would pray that over the next several years, every one of those people someday would come to this facility, sit there proudly and say, I helped build this.
Great thought. Well, more information about the event at our websites, which are thepublicsquare.com and aproundtable.org. Hope to see you there on the 4th of July.
From the oceans through the valleys, from the mainland to the shore, let your kingdom be awakened in the hearts of men.
The Public Square is a broadcast service of the American Policy Roundtable.